What's up? My name is Alex and I'm a professional music producer. Today I want to analyze and rank all of the Persona 5 Palace themes. This doesn't include Persona 5 Royal tracks because I haven't still finished that one, but there's loads of things to talk about when it comes to the original Persona. Let's go. Number 8 is King, Queen and Slave, the theme for Kamoshida's palace. This theme is meant to represent the cardinal sin of lust. I think it's no coincidence that the track is brimming with funky wah guitars. Honestly, when paired with that naughty rock organ riff, it feels like some 80s porno music. Very fitting for Kamoshida's perversions, I suppose. My favorite part of this theme occurs when the funky guitar actually disappears and leaves space for a beautiful bass line and a synth solo to steal the show. The rest of the track is very groovy and I'd say it's a very nice piece of music. However, this is definitely my least favorite Palace theme. It kinda pales in comparison with the others. So I give this the number 8 in my list. Number 7 is Sweatshop, the Palace theme for Amazon. Okumura Foods. This is the most techno of all of Persona 5 tracks probably. Unlike most Persona 5 tracks where you have a rock or funky arrangement, this one sounds very synthetic. In fact, the leading instrument is not a funky bass, but it's a gritty synthetic bass instead. I think they chose this synthetic approach as a way to represent the overall aesthetic of this palace. My favorite part of this track is the moment where the gritty bass disappears actually, and a funky guitar takes over by playing some very cool palm mutes. I'm not sure why, but it reminds me of Cowboy Bebop's opening.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, it's jam.
This is a pretty cool thing, but when compared to the others, I have to say I put this one in the 7th place. Number 6 is Freedom and Security, the theme for the Last Palace in Persona 5. This is definitely one of the saddest tracks in the game, along with Futaba's Palace. What I like the most about this one is how it hits differently than most Palace's themes. There's no funky grooves here, there's no catchy beat. We just have a wave of grief, sadness and self-reflection represented by these guitar arpeggios and that beautiful clean guitar solo. I'm not sure what it is about this style of playing, but it feels like the guitar is crying out a deep sense of sorrow itself. While this is a very nice piece of music that also sounds way more like Persona music than other tracks in this game, I feel it has less personality than the other themes I'm gonna talk about. Thus, I put this one in the 6th place. Number 5 is A Woman, the theme for Madarame's Palace. I personally believe that if this theme is high on your list of favorite Persona 5 soundtracks, then your music taste must be quite refined. I say that because just like Yusuke himself, this track's apparent simplicity hides a very carefully studied elegance. You can notice that in the harmony in which it is based. Basically, the harmony isn't dark, nor is it bright. It's actually playing in between the two realms very elegantly, using light and shadow to depict a very refined picture. This sort of harmonic language is very used in genres which I love, like deep house or chill out lounge. In fact, if we don't change the notes but just make this more rhythmic, that's what we get. This is the reason why A Woman deserves a higher place than the previous themes we analyzed, I believe. Surely it's because I love deep house a lot, but also I like when things can be reused in different genres without even changing the notes. It shows that they transcended the genre they were put in and they are much more than what they appear to be. Thus, I believe A Woman is deserving to sit in the 5th place on this list. Number 4 on my list is Arc, the theme for Shido's Palace. Other than just being very catchy in its simplicity, Arc is a piece with a big sense of importance behind it, and you really feel that when you compare with the other Persona 5 tracks. There's just something about this track that feels very grand, and by taking a closer look you may notice what it is. I'm talking about those French horn chords playing underneath the main melody. French horn is one of the most epic instruments in the orchestra, and it actually appears very rarely on Persona 5. I may be biased because I'm an orchestral composer, but hearing them even just as background elements here makes quite the difference for me. The second reason why I love this track so much is nostalgia. There's a few notes in Ark's melody which remind me of two tracks from the series. One is Tokyo Daylight. While the other reminds me of Persona 4 Golden's main theme. I'm not sure if that was intentional or if it's just Shoji Meguro's way to write melodies, but this parallel on top of like those beautiful French churn is what does it for me, as Persona 4 Golden is my favorite entry in the series. Thus, I place Arc in the 4th place in this list. Number 3 is The Days When My Mother Was There, Futaba's Palace theme. This is definitely one of the best themes for one of the best girls in the game. It starts with an Egyptian-like melody and a super cool drum beat that is quite underrated in my opinion. However, the theme goes quite sad quite fast as soon as the guitar kicks in. Before this point in the game, the only instances in which we heard such guitar tone was during the sad tracks like Confession Secret. So in a way, when you hear this guitar solo kicking in Futaba's Palace theme, you already know you should prepare to cry because the game educated you into understanding when you hear this, you're gonna cry. In fact, clean guitar solos with loads of vibrato such as this one are the instrument that can feel the closest to human cry in my opinion. Because of the way the notes don't stay still, but they kind of vibrate and they oscillate like a human moaning. I think you simply can't resist the wave of grief that this theme represents, especially when you go look it up on YouTube and read the title for the first time. As you guys know, I like to judge songs based on how well they convert to other genres, and by keeping the notes the same but changing the tempo slightly, Futaba's Palace theme works so perfectly for jazz. On the plus side, this whole groove reminds me of Sonic Adventure 2's music for some reason. I mean, put some rap over here and it'll turn into an excellent track for a Knuckles level. How more epic can this track get? I mean, this definitely deserves the 3rd spot on my list. Number 2 is Price, the theme for Kaneshiro's Palace. Now, we clarified that just about all of Persona 5 Palace themes are groovy as heck. So why is Price so special? Honestly, after all these years, it's still so hard for me to tell. I suspect that it's because of how well everything links together in terms of rhythm, and also, there's simply no boring instrument parts in this track. Sometimes songs may have a cool melody, which comes at the cost of sacrificing the bassline. Or, you may have a very cool melody and basslines, but the drums or chords may be repetitive. Here, instead, every single instrument is jamming and vibing so hard with the other, and it's quite exciting to hear. The groove of the drum sounds super fun to play, and it gets more intense as the track goes on. The other instruments are written in a way to follow the energy brought by the drums completely. Thus, all of them evolve in interesting ways throughout the track, and also play lots of syncopated rhythmic notes that make the track drag on with incredible flow. There's 2 very strong examples of that. One is the chord progression on the Rhodes. Notice how it ends up on a very tense cadence as a way to hype you up for the chorus. When put together with the drum fill, it's as if the instruments are pushing you at the edge of the seat to prepare you for the part that comes after. That part features my favorite thing about this track, that illegal bass line, which is also one of the best bass lines I've ever heard in video game music. I love this bass a lot, especially because it reminds me of one of my favorite bass lines of all times, which is from a Steven Wilson song called Lumino. Now, I'm black, so I'm a nerd for rhythm and bass. Thus, for me, this deserves a second spot on my list because it's the best bass and best rhythm in Persona 5. Number 1 is The Whims of Fate from 5's Palace. This absolute sexy track is incidentally my favorite Persona 5 track of them all. Whims of Fate represents everything that makes Persona 5 soundtrack so cool and adds some incredible vocals and lyrics from Lyn on top of it. The vocals kick in by playing a beautiful game of color response with the jazzy chords of the Rhodes. I mean, Lyn's voice is just too freaking good, and it reaches a peak in the chorus of the track, which I briefly talked about in my Rivers in the Desert analysis. As I mentioned there, the secret sauce are the backing vocals, coloring the whole track in the most glamorous way, while Lyn steals the show with her high vibratos. The lyrics and the execution are also top-notch sexy, which is quite fitting because we're talking about the best girl, Sae Nijima. But what absolutely kills me in this track is, as you might have already guessed, that bass. There's just something about the way the bass dances around those octaves and makes you question if it's normal to feel sexually attracted by a bass line. Wait, is it just me? Okay. Anyway, it doesn't really help that this bass line reminds me of Around the World from Daft Punk. Whims of Fate is definitely number 1 for me. However, this track probably left a bigger impression on me because it's also the only Palace theme with vocals in it. In fact, I suppose that is the reason why all of Persona battle tracks have vocals in them for the most part. They want you to get hooked to those amazing lyrics and vocal lines. That is also why the soundtracks for games such as The World Ends With You and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance somehow managed to stay stuck in my head forever. Those are my personal takes, but I want to hear from you. What are your favorite Palace themes of Persona 5 and why? Let me know. And if you like to indulge into video game music theory stuff, feel free to subscribe to the channel because there's loads of analysis I made in the form of music reactions. So check those out if you want to learn more about Persona 5 music. Bye!